Hello, YouTube. I don't want to do one of those weird hellos. Hello, everybody. Happy Hobby Palooza. It is Ziggy No. It is Saturday. What is it? 7/10/21. Saturday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. What is that? 4 p.m. on the West Coast. I can't go outside the U.S. with time zones. I'll lose it. I have challenges as it is. Thank you guys for being here. Really excited to be here. Got a really good show tonight. The little Shark Week. I got a guest tonight who's going to come on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about Shark Week and the hobby and kind of some of the analogies in it. I want you to understand the agenda tonight. We're going to kind of lay out a story, share some ideas, want a lot of participation from the audience. So please ask questions, give us your opinion. We do have a box of Upper Deck Hockey. I think it's Trilogy to give away tonight on the show. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. I might just pick the best, most, best questions or something like that, but we'll figure it out. I will encourage you guys, please register if you've not already. Register on the Bench Clear website. You have to be registered in order to get the prize if you win. And it also helps them register. I don't think they're not spamming you. It's just they're collecting information. It helps them so they can market in the future. So guys, thanks for being here. We will get through the chat. I'm super excited about that. First of all, I want a quick announcement. Like I said, we're going to talk about the hobby and Shark Week. We're going to talk about a solution at the end. So it's not all doom and gloom. We got some great ideas here. We're going to give away a box of Upper Deck. But before I do that, I wanted to share with you, I have come to an announcement. I am unfortunately, and I do sincerely mean this, I'm unfortunately not going to be going to the National this year. I was listening to that video by Sports Card Investigator and Andy, and he convinced me that it would not be worth going. That is actually not the reason why I'm not going. That's a joke on that. But I am not going to National. I do have Andy, though, as my guest tonight. The reason I'm not going to National is actually family and some other commitments with work. I do want to say I'm a huge fan of National, and I'm really sad I'm not going. So I'll be reaching out to many of you in proxy to tell me about it. I have a lot of friends who will be there. I'm super excited for those who people are going. So I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm a huge fan. If I could go, I'd be there. And it's not, I have no interest in buying cards or selling cards. I want to go to National to meet people and hang out with friends and just, it'd be awesome. So it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And I just thought I'd share that with you now. So let me go ahead without further delay. I don't like a do. Without further delay, let me introduce to you Andy. Andy, how you doing tonight, sir?
Just when I thought I was out, you dragged me back into it again.
I did drag you back in. And I hope we have a good audience out there. People don't know Andy from Sports Card Investigator. Great channel. I do recommend checking out his channel. Has some phenomenal videos, great production. Here's another thing I really like about your channel, Andy. You do this with your son. I can't wait for my sons to get into the level they can start helping with production. So your son does a lot of the production, the video editing. You put together the content. That's awesome. So they're really sharing the hobby and more than just collecting. You're producing a show together. So that's cool. But great channel, great investigator. I love your intro. I won't ruin it for you guys. You've been seeing his intro. You've got to check out his intro because I think about it all the time. But tonight we have you as a co-host guest. And as you mentioned to me yesterday, when we were coming up with ideas, you reminded me that next week is the beginning of one of the best weeks in the summer. Everybody, right? That's Shark Week. I mean, Discovery Channel Shark Week, which is really a great week. And what's it? Network TV or cable TV?
It is. And Shark Week, I have a fondness for sharks. They've intrigued me my entire life. I grew up on the East Coast, and when I was a youngster, there was the greatest movie that it's one of those movies. I'm sure everyone has those movies, right? Where you're flipping through the channels. Maybe it's The Godfather, Scarface, A Few Good Men, and Jaws. So Jaws is my favorite, if not one of my favorite movies of all time. And when we started to think about this, I said, how could we tie together a movie like Jaws with the card community? And it was easier than I had suspected. So what I did was I started looking at the movie. And for those of you who don't know, I can't imagine anyone has not seen.
Yes. Is anybody in the chat not seen it? Because you were right, Andy. I remember Jaws I think it was 78, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll be honest.
1975.
Okay. So I didn't see it in the theaters. I know I saw it some other time. But it changed the way my brother and I went to the beach because my father used to carry buckets of water to us to the beach because we wouldn't go in the water for probably at least 2 summers.
That was the big thing. I remember because I am old enough. I actually did see it. I was very, 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 very young, and it scared the living crap out of me. and one of the big pool companies said, "See Jaws, then buy a blank pool," because that's what it did to everyone.
That's great marketing. Great marketing.
So when I watched the movie, and for those of you who don't, to tell you very succinctly, it's about a 2,000-pound, 25-foot great white shark that decides to take up residency off of Amity, New York, which is a little sleepy tourist village outside of New York City, or outside upstate New York. And the cast of characters is they're so colorful, but they're so good and they're so great developed. There were like papers written about these guys. So I took a look at each one and I decided, how can I compare them to The Hobby? Mm-hmm. So bear with me, guys, because I think you're going to like this. So first off, we have Chief Brody. Okay. Chief Brody is a big time police officer who decides to take it easy, and he goes up to Amity, New York, and his job is just to keep the town safe. No matter what it takes, his job is to keep the town safe. He thought he'd be writing for some, parking violations. And then he, out of nowhere, he is faced with this unbelievable threat that threatened his sleepy town.
He's a father too. Remember,
he's a father, and he's afraid of the water, which is even more. He says a very a great line in the movie where Matt Hooper, who we'll talk about in a second, says, "You're afraid of the water. You live on an island." He goes, "Well, only if you look at it from the water." But he basically, his job is to protect laws, regulation, and rules. So my first thing was for you guys to think about is, who is the Chief Brody of The Hobby? And it could be a person or it could be an entity. Are there anything or anyone or any governing body that keeps us safe in The Hobby? So stick that. That's number
maybe
one.
There's not a Brody, right? Maybe there is no Brody right now.
And maybe there's not.
Swimming in the water, right?
So the second guy I want to talk about is Matt Hooper. Matt Hooper,
the scientist, right? Curly hair guy.
He's a great, good guy. Educated, lots of resources. He's been studying sharks to the day a shark attacked his boat when he was fishing and ever since then he was devoted to study them. And he comes to Amity on his own volition. Chief Brody said, "I need some help." So Hooper decided to come and help him. He didn't look for any of it in return, just to study and to tell anyone that would listen that we have a problem out there.
He's verifying, right? He's verifying the problem.
He's verifying the problem. He's trying to figure out what exactly the problem is and then how he could fix that problem. So who are the Hoopers of the card community? I met a lot of collectors over the last few weeks that could very well fit that Matt Hooper. So who are the Matt Hoopers?
Yep, they're the experts. You're right. They know the industry. They know the shark. This is the guy that verifies the size of the tooth, right? And this is a big shark type of thing, right?
That's right. And they don't ask for anything in return.
Yeah.
They just want to help, and they're doing it because they love to do it, and they're in it for all the reasons to protect and help people.
Yeah.
Quint. Okay. Quint's my favorite character. He's worth the price of admission for this movie. He's fantastic. And I think because people might think I'm a lot like Quint.
He never acted after this, though. He was done after this movie.
He died.
Really? Like right after the movie?
Very, very young, yeah.
I did not know that. Sorry to say that, because I realized he didn't have an acting career afterwards. Okay, go back to Quint.
He did a movie called The Deep. He was in James Bond as the villain, but he passed away very, very, very young. Okay. So Quint, he is a very, very interesting character. Okay. He's not a bad guy. He comes off as a very mean guy, but he has ulterior motives, and his actions are extremely calculated, right? He knows and he sees the town has a big problem, and he sees how they're attacking this problem isn't going to work. So he sits back and waits until the issue presents itself where they have no other way except to contact or help him catch this shark. So he sees an opportunity to cash in, and Quint offers his help, but it comes at a price.
Yeah.
$10,000. You get the head, the tail, the whole darn thing,
shark.
right?
Yeah.
He's a professional. He's really good at his job.
Seems like a good price today too. I mean, that's like maybe 2 Lucas Silver Prisms. I mean, that's
it.
Bad.
That's it. He's a professional and he's a mercenary. But there is there's a need for guys like Quint when the going gets tough, right?
Yeah.
Then you got a guy that's really interesting, and he kind of falls under the radar a little bit. And there's been a lot of debate over the years of if this person is actually the bigger villain in the movie than the shark. Yeah. And that is Mayor Larry Vaughn. Well, why is that? Well, Mayor Vaughn is in it to make sure that his town makes as much money as possible over the summer.
Yep.
So he ignores the problem to the point where it has some very serious consequences. He's basically nothing to see here, get in the water, everything is good, don't worry about it, until this shark literally, as Hooper said, you're going to ignore this until it comes up and bites you right in the ass. And that's kind of what happens. And I think, in my opinion, he's the biggest threat to, he's the biggest villain. And then you have the shark. And, the funny thing is, sharks are going to be sharks, right? Again, as Hooper said, sharks do 3 things. They swim, they eat, and they make little sharks, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, if sharks are presented with an opportunity to do sharky things, they will. So that's it. Who do you think is a shark in the hobby? So there you have the guys that protect us, if they are. You have Hooper, who's in it to help and do whatever he can. You have Quint, who has ulterior motives, but he knows his stuff, but there's a price that he will exact.
Well, I'll tell you, I think the reality is, if you look at those people, we've all got that in each one of us to some level, right? What I think the hobby's lacking, though, and we lack, is there's no Brody anymore. There's nobody telling you, hey, like, and first question I'm seeing some great chat here, like who is the shark and who is the villain, and somebody was, I think, calling PSA is the Borg, PSA is the bad one. It's funny when I think of it, I think the sharks as the manufacturers, and I say that because, like you just said, sharks is there. That's what they're doing, and manufacturers are there to make money. And I forget that often as a passionate collector. I get very frustrated with my favorite company, Panini. But really, they're just a manufacturer. They're in the business to print cards, and they sell those cards, and they make money so they can get more cards and do it over and repeat, right? And they're keeping people employed. They've got project they're sharks, right?
They're sharks.
But then you've got, like you said, you got the guys telling you, hey, don't worry about the sharks. Don't worry that the Panini prices are $2,000 a box. Get back in there and buy those boxes for $2,000.
And some of them have reasons for that, because they are in there. They have motives for telling you that.
Yes, monetary motives, right? And I think one of the topics I want to get to with the conversation is we're laying out this analogy of what the hobby is, and I don't want people to think of the hobby as negative, because the hobby is a lot of fun things, but it is a marketplace like nothing else. Like Andy and I talked a little bit about this before we started the show. I can't think of any other market where you can create a product and it goes for more money in the aftermarket, and there aren't any regulations or review of that product, right? Like drugs, alcohol, guns, ammunition, all that stuff kind of gets watched. But in sports cards, it seems like, it's just happening. And I know people talk about, monopolies and someone's going to stop them. No one's going to stop anybody, right? Regulators don't get involved because people are making money and or losing money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
When I started looking at this, and I'm not going to bore anyone, because every time I bring it up, people are like, oh, there is no regulation in this business. It's the Wild West, right? It's a modern day gold rush. People will do what they can. They'll step over their mother to try to make money. And I see that, and I don't have any answer for that, because it's too easy sometimes. And last year and a year and a half did not help us.
Yeah.
Because people saw how easy it was, and it's not going to continue. But now you're going to start seeing people getting hurt because it's not going to, it just can't continue.
Well, that's why I've always been saying I think we're going to see a correction in behavior. I'm not concerned about the values of cards at this point. I'm looking at how behavior changes and how do we respond to it, right? Like, I think what's great about the last year and a half is there's definitely more people in the hobby than there were before, right? Mm-hmm. How much they're involved in the hobby, who knows? Maybe they're just whittling. Maybe they only do one sport, what it might be. But there's more visibility than there ever has been before, which, again, brings me back to the opportunity where I think we as hobbyists, as collectors, anybody watching or listening to this today, we actually have the ability to make a difference and to collaborate. And I don't know if it's create a community of sports card, users or something like that, but we really should think of a way to get our voice out there and heard. I wish that somebody in the hobby was a leader. And I don't know who that would be either, because everybody seems to have a monetary position, right? But it would be nice to see somebody, and again, I'm not looking for that role. I'd like to see somebody in the hobby kind of say, you know what, guys? And I think maybe the biggest leader I look towards for direction is probably Dr. Beckett, because he's made some very profound statements in his retirement about the last year of the hobby and what's going on. Like one that I'll quote is, he says, it's not illegal or criminal. It's just wrong, right? A lot of things we see going on, right? There's no laws behind it. There's no punishment. You're not going to go to jail for taking cards and ripping them and flipping them or whatever the heck you do with them, right? They're just some things that are wrong. And what's nice, what I think is great about the hobby is in most cases, it has self-regulated. It's, like my favorite place is Facebook groups, because in Facebook groups, you have to normally be vouched in or at least be recommended into the group. And if you do something wrong, they're going to basically, document it, or they're going to broadcast it, right? So you're going to be ashamed. And people will reach out to you, hey, why haven't you paid? Why haven't you paid? It's very community. But the reason that all exists is because there wasn't a good community in the past, right? There was fraud. And Brandon Cooks to 99 is the one I will always remember. You remember the story of Brandon Cooks to 99, right? You can just say that and people know the story. A guy was running a breaks and he was scamming cards.
Yep. Well, that's the problem too. If there's no regulation, then there's always going to be ripe for fraud. I guarantee everyone right now, there are people trying to figure out ways to defraud the card market, because there are so many new people and so many people that are not, I'm not going to say knowledgeable, but they're just not. Sometimes things are too good to be true, and people will take advantage of those people who are unknowing. It's a shame. But I could tell you that with the way the market is and the way it's unregulated, there's always going to be fraud and abuse.
Yeah. And again, I think that what's great is right now there are a lot of things going on with what PSA is doing. The money that's pumping into the infrastructure of the hobby, I do want to stress that, right? Where you see these big investments, that's going to bring in people who will want to have some regulation or some rules written, or there will be some boundaries because they're going to want to protect those investments, right? So I think we're on a positive track. I just don't think that, if we expect, like I heard the other day, the rumor that Panini's shopping themselves around. I have no idea if that's true or not, but if that's the case, what would stop Panini and Topps from merging? Would that be bad? I mean, then you'd basically get Topps Chrome and Prism from the same manufacturer. They have all the licenses for the major products except for hockey. Put it this way, the SEC would not step in and go, oh, no, this is a violation of sports cards. They're not going to do that, right? The business could say, we have to do this.
The only time you're going to see someone step in, and I was happy to see it kind of did a little while ago. I think you shared the video, was when someone is fraudulently taken advantage of, where there's a monetary amount over a certain amount. That's not really regulation. That's self-regulation, where people are, getting scammed. Mm-hmm. And the problem with sports cards is, in order to prosecute someone, you have to have intent, and you have to prove that intent. So when you were talking about where the person documented, like on email, they had phone calls, maybe whatever they did, they were able to document it, and then they were able to prosecute. The problem is now the intent. Like, how do I show intent that you knowingly sold me a fraudulent card? It's really difficult.
So let's talk about that. Because Andy, I sent you that link the other day, right? And there was apparently a story where a guy had a guy arrested who was selling fraudulent cards, right?
Mhm.
But let's walk through your scenario. If somebody's online and sells you a fake card, how would you prove intent? How would you do that? What would you do to protect yourself? Is
Well,
it even
that's the thing.
possible?
It's so difficult. If someone is stupid enough and you say, "Dude, you sold me a fraudulent card," and they responded, "Yes, so what?" Okay, now you got them because that shows intent
That they knew it. Okay.
that they knew it. But let's say I bought a card. I don't know. They bought a card from someone and they put it on eBay. They didn't know
Yep.
it was a bad card. And then someone said, "You sold me a fraudulent card." Well, I didn't know that. You can never prove intent in something like that.
And I think that's another challenge we have too. You'll hear a story about a guy who does buy something that's fake. He doesn't know it's fake. He can't get the guy who sold it to him. So what does he do? Oh, I'm just gonna sell on eBay. I'll play ignorant to the truth. Like they know there's something sketchy about it, which brings up the other day with the whole PSA thing where they pulled the PSA card right from the auction.
Right.
That to me was really shocking, right?
And
again,
they pulled that because
they
pulled it because they didn't think it was the grade, or they thought it was
I don't know,
or the fraudulent one, or they couldn't verify its authenticity.
I don't remember. I know that Golden pulled the PSA 10, right? Did he come out and say why? This was in the blowout forms.
I remember one recently, and if you guys are listening out there, maybe you would know, but I think they pulled one because he didn't think it was a 10. So remember, he pulled out he pulled it because he says, I looked at, whoever and said, I don't really think this is a PSA 10. We're going to have it regraded. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, that to me, I don't even know why that can happen, because if I see a card in a pristine 10 BGS label and it's crooked, hey, it's in the label. I don't know what to tell you. Unless the label's fake, unless the slab is fake, it's been graded, and that happens. So I don't know why that would happen, where he would pull an auction of a card and say this doesn't look good. Now, if he thought the slab was fake, that makes sense to me.
Well, unless he looked at it and it was so, just like there was something whatever. I saw one, I think it was a carry card that it was just scratched, and it was obviously it shouldn't have been what it was.
This is interesting. An FBI removed a dealer in Nashville who was selling fake in-person autographs. Now that, I'll tell you, see, the reason for that is there's legal consequences behind autographs. Forgery, exactly. Making fake cards isn't the same, correct? I mean, that's a different thing.
Well, if you look on eBay,
it's a licensing violation.
Guys actually make fake. I think I sent one to you, like a fake card. Like he does his own print and he does something with it and he markets it to say. I don't know how they get away with that, but they do. Maybe they change one little thing. I don't know.
Yeah, again, I think that's a licensing issue, right? If you're doing that, it has nothing to do with autographs. I remember listening to Steve. I think it was Steve. Is it Steve, the guy who does the authentications? He was talking about there's just not enough. There's also enough police force power in the FBI to go chasing authentication, violators.
No, it's not. It's obviously not going to be high on their list. But I've talked to some people at the U.S. Attorney's Office and just asked them what the threshold would be, because you go to grand theft and things like that. And I think as things become more prevalent, maybe they would treat it like, art's a whole different situation. But some of these cards are just worth so much money that there has to be some kind of, someone has to do something, or we're going to be heading for trouble.
Well, and again, the reason I bring this up for everybody in the audience, you and I have spoken to, like, if you asked me 2 years ago, what would I do about the hobby to change it? I would have told you I'd get rid of exclusive licensing. Today, I would tell you, I really think there needs to be some type of regulation in the industry. However, I don't know how that would occur or what it would be. And I guess the two areas where I see some regulation, I think in the manufacturing of the card, there might need to be some specs, some requirements. I'd even like to say, I don't know, I can put it this way: doesn't alcohol stores or alcohol manufacturers have to keep count of how much they make?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe print runs should be disclosed after a certain period of time. I understand it's important to the manufacturer, but to keep legitimacy about the collection and the value of these collectibles, maybe they should disclose that. And the other area is in grading. I think grading should be spec. I think there should be standards between grading. I think one grading company gives a card a 9.5. Another company should be pretty close to 9.5 if they're following the same specs, right? Width, height, length, corner, whatever that might be. I think those things could be standardized in the industry.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, because you have different companies with their different standards. I mean, CSG centering is a lot more harder or strict than PSA. I mean, PSA on the back, you could have I don't know what it was, 70-30 or something like that. And CSG is
so
much more difficult.
All this, what you're telling me, I'll just say this. It makes me crazy because I think to myself, tell me how you talk to a millionaire investor and tell them that sports cards are good investment when you have these type, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand that. It's like me telling you, hey, I'm going to weigh gold, but I'm going to use my gold weighing measurement style. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's just so vague to me. That's why I think the challenging is.
But there's no quality control in the industry if you think about it. Not just with grading. I mean, we talked about this too. Panini, when they manufacture cards, there's no quality control with Panini. I mean, there's no one that's saying like this passes inspection or this doesn't, and that's one of the problems.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So, what does the chat think? What would you do to change the hobby? How would you regulate the hobby? Is regulation important? And I just think that as we grow this, as things get better, this is an opportunity. We have a lot of eyes, a lot of people paying attention to it, a lot of investment money coming in. And I'll put it this way. What if the collectors group, I keep saying PSA, but let's say the team there decide they're going to come up with an advisory board on sports cards. Would we embrace that? Would that be a good thing? Or we look at it as, it's the same guys doing everything. I just think that if there's some direction, it would be positive in some way for the hobby.
Well, self-regulation, right? I mean, that would be it.
Yes, but again, we're not doing a good job of that, in my opinion, right now.
But it would be a step higher where you would get, say, people from the different aspects of the hobby. You get collectors, you get people in the industry or whatever it is. Yeah. And then from there, I mean, it's a pie in the sky, because then you would have like your own regulatory commission. Like, you're approved through these guys to be someone trustworthy when you're selling cards. But it's such a mammoth undertaking. I just don't see it. Yeah,
I guess you're right. I guess it still is just the way it's the Wild West sports card marketplace.
It is. It's impossible.
Which is why I think relationships can become more and more important, because then you buy and sell from friends that you buy and sell from collectors that through them or refer to you, and you don't dip too deep into the water, because we know there's dangers out there.
It is, and that's the thing with. I mean, how do you help people, or how do you fix that? Is it through education? Is it through a mindset? I don't have all the answers.
Here's an interesting comment. Hobbies are generally regulated through third parties. You're right. Like, well, let's think about that. Okay, coins are a currency, so they're regulated because of government. Stamps are also federally regulated because they're a form of currency.
Coins.
As well. What are some other hobbies?
Coins.
Yeah, again, they're currency though. I guess autographs. Well, again, regulation because of forgery. I don't know. I think they all have some regulation to some level in the collector space, except for sports cards.
No, I agree.
They are the way they are. Should I worry about buying fake slabs? I definitely would. And I don't think anybody's, everybody's perfect at this, right? I think you buy from credible people that you know or trust. Most of the slabs that I've gotten recently have come from PSA, or from people that I know got it directly from PSA. I don't buy much slab stuff at all on eBay. And I do follow a lot of channels that give me tips on how to identify fake slabs.
Yeah, Ed just made a good comment, a couple down, as far as fake cards, fake reprints have been in the hobby forever. The way to combat is to be very informed and trust a person you're buying from. That's it in a nutshell, because you can run a PSA certification and they could say, yeah. And I would, suggest everybody, obviously, if you're new to the hobby, you're going to do that, but you just have to buy from a reputable person, or do your best that you possibly can, and knowing people within the hobby, Yeah.
And the thing is that right now in the last year, we go back to your analogy, there's just so many mayors. Right. There's so many mayors telling you, just go back in the water. Don't worry about the sharks. Just get back in the water. And I don't think there are enough of those, the quints who are kind of warning you about the fake cards, about the fake prints, about knowing about how important a relationship is. Like, there was a boom in YouTube content, but I think the best relationships, like we all know, are the ones you meet in person. The guy you meet in a card store, right? The guy that you meet at the local trade store or trade show. Those are the better relationships. I even point out, like, I have some great friends I met in chasing retail, right? Waiting at a Target, I'd meet people that I would again buy and sell cards from now because I know them.
Right.
I'd rather
Well,
buy
that's the whole thing, and that's the relationships that you make in the hobby. Zippy now, my friend, but I don't have anything against Zippy. He makes a good point. He says nobody has the balls to take the fake slabs to national. They will get confiscated. I hope they would. I mean, is there an indication that they would? And he says later on that I'll expect a lot of activity by the FBI and Rosemont. That would be fantastic. Just the presence of someone going around and checking. But wouldn't it be cool if they actually had an expert in the in the card area, like eBay should have, to go in and maybe, like, sometimes presence that there's oversight is enough to cause the problem to be alleviated.
Well, I want to say at one of the shows, it wasn't the most recent Dallas one, but one before there was somebody accused of selling a fake Jordan. And when they went back to verify the card, the person disappeared. They didn't buy it. They were looking at it.
I saw that. Yeah.
Remember that? And
well, didn't he call his friend? And I guess, he actually did. I think he called a friend and they went, and I guess this guy had a reputation and he disappeared.
Yep. Well, I think the big difference there too, I mean, I'll stress is that the National are, and I don't mean this in the wrong way, but they are legitimate dealers who probably signed up for the spots in 2018 at the last or 2019, right? In preparation for the 20, and they'd been there 2018 and before, and they paid a lot of money for those spots. Where Dallas and a lot of the new card shows are a lot of, I jokingly call them kitchen dealers, right? Because they basically started dealing recently and they got everything they need in the kitchen. They don't, it's they're not going to have the same eyes. You're right. If you bring this stuff to national, they're going to call it out faster.
But think about it. And Zippy, I feel so funny calling Zippy okay. Now, but it's actually, I hate to admit it because he hates me, but he makes an excellent point, because how cool would it be if you had someone like the show itself? They would say, look, we're going to have you come up to the show and we're going to pay, but someone who's an expert who could literally walk the show, talk to people, get tips if there's any kind of funny business going on or whatever it is, and look at it that way. I think that might be something. It's just anything that would just deter someone from trying to take advantage of someone.
I agree. One thing I was listening to somebody talk about if they were changing, I think it was BGS. I think this is in Glorious P. And he made a comment that he thinks the grader should do kind of a road show. Mm-hmm. And I do think that would be great. I don't care who the grader is, but at these conferences, they should have a workshop that talks about what do graders look for in grading. Everything from how they want it to come to them in a top loader or the penny sleeve to corners, edges, everything they look for, just to kind of prevent people from grading so they should, and also do some pre-screening. Here's what I'm looking for. I guess they can't tell you everything, but give you some direction on what they're looking for.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to give up the secret sauce. I mean, they're just not.
Give me I love the conversation I had just a few weeks ago with the SGC guy, just simply telling me the tabs are a waste of time, right? So if anybody didn't hear this, he was saying when people put the tabs on the card's penny sleeve to pull the card out of the card saver too, he says that's actually bad because it can indent the card over pressure and then being laid there, that little tab. And also the graders have to get rid of those. I thought that was great insight. I think that right there, just tell us those little things. Just prepare me. You don't have to tell me all your secret sauce, but give me some information. And then also manufacturers should do something on, screening, do some more awareness stuff.
The problem with grading, and it's one of the things that I really tried to dive into, is the consistency with the individual grader. I don't know what one grader is going to look at. I don't know if he's in a rush. I don't know if he's got, there's a human factor. And unless it went, like we talked about before, which I don't think is ever going to happen, like a totally AI type of grading, I just think there's always going to be, and I think Jay just said, why shouldn't they give up the secret sauce? Grading shouldn't be he's 100% right. I mean, I've tried to look at it as a grading as an analytical thing, where I I look at every single part of that card and over and over and over again, and I've become pretty good at it. I think a lot of times with grading, people just give the benefit of the doubt to the card, and then they get upset when they get it back and it doesn't grade. Mm-hmm. But I've sent cards in that I thought for sure were going to be a 10 or a 9, and it came back no grade. So I don't know.
It's funny. The comment about the diamond world is interesting. Who does the grading for diamonds? I have no idea. Are those experts?
Diamonds are done on a whole different grading system, and it's a universal grading system. And it's like, and if someone out there knows, it's been a long time, but it goes like from like a letter like A, B up to H, I, and it's all clarity, color, cut. It's very detailed. It's been going on since the beginning of time, and there is a gemologist who they do that, and they have to go through certification and things like that. But we're talking about cardboard,
Yeah. It's funny. I was just thinking, one of the communities I think of as kind of the Brody is probably the blowout forums. Blowout forums, if you do something wrong, they do a good job of dissecting it and figuring it out. And I think the thing is, blowout forums is more old school, right? It's not new social media. It's not as catchy as card porn is on Instagram, right? You have to actually read blowout forums and, check it out, which I'll be honest, I don't read it as much, but I do think of them as kind of, they do a good job of policing some of the stuff going on in the hobby.
Well, they definitely bring to your attention things that are coming that are not good. They definitely are very good at bringing to light issues that we should all be paying attention to. It's everyone should do that. And they do. I mean, I'm on Discord and Twitter and Instagram, and you'll see all the time, like things come up, like, the scammers and things like that. And that always helps. And Sharpshoot is right too. Grading is subjective to the individual. It's a system is flawed. I 100% agree. I always wondered, like, if I was running a grading company, like if you took a graded card, it's like we talked about that when I regraded the Kobe Bryant. It came back, I put a minimum grade of 9. It came back no grade. And I said, I'll send it back anyway because I just want it to get slabbed. It came back a 9.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason for that.
And again, it's those stories I think drive me crazy because we've seen such huge differences in valuation based on a subjective opinion. And I also will point out, this is why you will never stop cracking. Because exactly what you said, if I get a card back, or not necessarily all the time, but if I get a card back, look, this is definitely a 10. This should at least be a 9.5. People will crack it and resubmit it. And why not? And now there's so many different options too. So I just think, again, there's gonna be a lot of prop plastic being cracked in the next year with all the cards coming back graded. And PSA is definitely, I don't care. I don't know if it's stricter. I don't know what it is, but they are brutal on their grades come back.
It'll be interesting because didn't PSA say that with this new Genament technology, that if the card is graded, right? If the card is graded, then it will know it came in. So I get a 7, I send it back cracked. Maybe it's just trying to deter people from doing it. But then you see like all the, it'll come back. Oh, this card was graded before. It's a 7. And then what scares me is, well, what if not me? What if someone sends a card in, it gets a 7 or an 8, and it's worth more raw on eBay? They crack it, they send it into eBay. I got a card. I send it in the PSA, and PSA says, "Oh, that card was graded 11 months ago. If you want it slabbed, it's a 7." I mean, there's a lot of things that
I'll put it this way. Personally, I think it's BS, and I think it's marketing. I don't believe that they can tell you and identify cards that have been previously graded. I do think the fingerprinting can give them more distinction. In fact, I'll even say this. I've heard them kind of reword that. Go GTS had an interview with the VP who was the owner of Gemament.
Mm-hmm.
And he even says the real value is in really determining counterfeits and fakes because it can fingerprint things like thickness, if the card might have been soaked and squeezed or something like that. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. Now, they could do it with obviously numbered and or patches because each patch should have a unique, fingerprint. And I'll tell you this too. People are going to call that bluff on them. Like I know people who crack already. And if you listen to PSA, they've already said they have not used Gemament yet. They're not using it currently. I think to me, I really think that they did that as a marketing move in retaliation to what they saw in the market with HGA. And I really credit that because HGA came out, whether you like them or not, they mentioned the whole AI computer grading thing, and it made PSA respond to the market. And the really easy way to respond was, we're going to buy Gem Mint, and guess what? Gem Mint's going to stop you from reslabbing. And that news press was what we walk away from. But we'll be interesting to see what happens there. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested to see what happens when PSA opens way up, like what their, kind of get off subject a little bit, but what their grading scale is going to be. Is the lowest grade you're going to be able to get a $50 grade? Because that's just going to change the way people do a lot of things. That grade, if you don't grade, then it's not going to even matter.
I like this comment here. Wait until PSA isn't popular. I understand that because, again, I remember they weren't popular 3 years ago. I mean, it really drove them. Yeah. What really drove them was this last boom in the last 24 months. Really, it's what drove that up. And it's interesting. I don't know if Ty's still watching or if he's on there, but I'd love to see. He did a report about a year ago comparing the ratio of BGS slabs in the market versus PSA. I'd love to see what the market is with all the different slabs, what the market is as far as, total number of slabs on eBay in Q1, what was PSA, BGS, and so forth, because I think that's changing. And PSA, marketing-wise, what I think they've done a great job of was they don't have a 9.5. Not having a 9.5.
They're never going to have a 9.5.
No,
it's never going to happen. Because then you have to, what happens to all the 9s or the 10s that were 9s, and they're never, it's never going to happen.
And the thing too is that no competitor, I think, can go after that. Like if you were coming out with a new grading company, new grading company is bold enough to go, we're not going to do 9.5s. We're either going to get 10s or 9s. No one's bold enough to do that. It'd be very hard to do, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think, again, I do agree with this. I think in the future there will be people will appreciate the subgrades more. And I also think there'll be a taste for the custom slabs, right? Because I think if you're a collector, you don't really care about, it's in a PSA 10 so I can sell it for the most money. It's in, hey, look at my Ravens collection. All my Ravens collections are in purple slabs, right? Or, I'm a Lakers collection. All my Laker cards are in yellow and purple slabs. So
Zippy, Zippy's on a roll because he just said exactly what we were talking about before. Ooh. I think if grading subcategory are mandatory, we talked about this before. That's why I love BGS slabs. If you're going to cross them over, because those subgrades, if I see a centering 10 and a corner 10, and they're much more reasonable than PSA 10s.
Yeah.
I think that's
Zippy, I'm going to give you the credit on that. That's a great area where you could standardize, right, by saying everybody has to provide subgrades, but they're not going to do that. Again, that's nothing you're going to force PSA to do. They would definitely never do that.
CSG has got to be, in my opinion, one of the toughest grades out there. I mean, they're not as popular as PSA, but if you have a CSG 9.5 with all 9.5 subgrades, hypothetically, that should be equal or close to a PSA. It's not even close. But
not in price,
you could get a $12 grade. You add $10. I think it's a $22 grade for CSG because they charge extra for the subgrades. I mean, that's almost like they're going to grade. They're going to proof your card for PSA, right? You send in a card and it's $22, and it's a 9.5 across the board. That's an easy 10 cracked.
So what you're saying is use them as your pre-screening, crack them. Now, do you cross over? You send the slab to them? I always crack the slab.
CSG is the easiest. I mean, these guys probably know more than me, but CSG is an easy slab to crack. I mean, it is very, very easy. And if you're getting 9.5 subs on a CSG, 2 seconds to crack that slab.
Interesting. I agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of that. That's why I love all the different grading companies because, again, I like the customization. I also like the availability. I am not sending any new cards to PSA. And there's mixed reasons for that. I'm not doing it right now. I don't have the reason.
Well, you can't. It's a what is it? A 100? Is it a 300?
200. But I'll even say I had a bucket that I was waiting. We're going to send these to PSA. I've now said no. I don't even have a bucket in my collector's mind for PSA right now. I really mean that. Like, even if I pulled a really great card, maybe there's an exception. I'd go PSA Express, but I probably would send it to one of the grading companies at this point. At this point, I don't know. I'm over the PSA chase. and I think they're getting too powerful as it is. So
Yeah,
I'm going to vote with my dollars.
It's going to be real interesting going forward, and if we had more time, we could talk about this, because I think the whole system now going forward with grading, to me, is just incredibly fascinating, because now you're going to have people saying, well, don't grade, base cards, right?
Yep.
Because, and I agree 100%. I talked about that before. I was, but now think about it. What's the population going to be on base cards going forward? If it's a 20, 25, it's not going to be a cheaper grade. But even now, because first of all, how Panini is self-regulating PSA 10s because their quality control is horrific. And then on top of that, when you get it, are you going to spend $100 on a base card? LaMelo Ball base, I mean, maybe a lot of them got in before the Prism base, before they raised it up to whatever it was. I don't think much, because I think the way it was, the cutoff date and the way when Prism was released, but that could be a population of 2,000, 1,500 or less. Then what happens?
You're absolutely right. So right now, LaMelo Ball's base PSA 10 Prism, pop count 94 on PSA, is selling for $650 or $675, which is the third or fourth highest in the base Prism basketball rookies. And I agree with you. I will also say this too. There's always going to be, I always look for this. Every new product release, there's some guy who's the first to get a PSA 10 to eBay market, and somebody buys it.
Yeah.
And they make a ton of money. So because of that, there'll be that race. Me, as an older collector, I like the patient game. I'm fine with being patient. I'm fine with, like I said, I've got a bucket of cards I want to grade at some point. I can use, there's so many options right now. I'm looking towards SGC actually right now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the vintage guys use SGC. Yep. I looked at them too.
Well, their turnaround times are fair. They're getting more market share. I've heard great things. They've got some zealots. They got some big fans on the CSGville. So I'm a fan of them. I'd like to do Beckett, but Beckett's kind of sleeping right now.
Yeah. And one more was Zippy brought up. He said, I don't think, if I read on the PSA, that must have been before, because I don't think they're doing the crossovers anymore. Haven't they stopped doing the crossovers? That's why people will crack it and send it, because I don't think they're doing
if you send a crossover for Express, they'll do it.
Yeah, I'd probably just crack it and send it, because I think you're right. They're probably like, well, we're not going to automatically do that. I think that's probably right.
That is a good point. So this is, I have to say, Zippy, your face is, it just cracks me up. I've interacted with Zippy on live. You're right. Nat did make the comment, which I thought was interesting. Sometimes the graders don't want to do crossovers where they have to crack the card, which I agree. In fact, here's another one. I'd love to see how graders crack cards. Anybody know how do they crack them?
Oh, the great. Well, no, you could. Have you ever cracked cards before?
Yeah,
right?
I crack them with a wrench and a screwdriver.
Well, maybe they have a machine. You would think, right? Wouldn't it be funny if they had like the special machine that just goes in and goes? Maybe they're in there cracking it the same way.
I saw Carson in there with Pure Graded X. Carson, can the hammer uncrack a card? Is it kind of like Krypton? What's that stuff they put Han Solo in? Right?
Oh, yeah, the crypto, whatever.
Yeah.
I also saw, I think it was Vegas Fines a long time ago. He cracked the Chamberlain and he just just ruined it. And I felt so bad.
I remember because he did that live, which is so funny. I've done some cracks and I've had some go bad. And I've deleted the video because I don't want to be reminded of it. Now I've not done anything terribly bad that I was regretted, but I learned a lot from that. I think you kind of do have to learn. Like my secret for cracking is that I take the card, I put a towel over it, and then I take the wrench and I pinch each of the corners to crack the corners. Then I remove the towel, and then I'll use the wrench to kind of break those pieces off, pop the thing.
I haven't done a PSA. I should do one just to see how they do it. But CSG, if the guy's out there, you take the clipper at the end, clip it, and it's simple. But no, grading going forward is going to be real interesting because I'm really interested to see how they how they play out. Yeah, there you go. What Ed's got it. They put a Han Solo in carbonite. That's right. I just saw that the other day. Yep.
Carbonite. So we got a few minutes left before we pass this over to Bowman 53, which I will drop the link in there for you guys. First of all, let me also say, Bench Clear, thank you guys very, very much for letting me participate this year. I'm super excited to be here. Super excited to have Andy on as well. I really love just the conversations people are talking about. The topics today have been great. Let me just close on let's talk a little about the National. I'm not going to pick on with the National right now, but let me ask you this, Andy. Will you go to local card shows in the future?
Oh yeah, I was talking to
booming.
Filmington. I was on Carlos's show last night for a while, and I was half joking. I'm really not. Filmington was saying that they're going to have a private party at Lowe's. I'm conflicted now. I really am.
Which one is that? That's at National, correct?
At the National, yeah.
Well, isn't he? He does a regional show in the New York area. Are you aware of that?
I did not know that.
I think
that's not too far.
And I was to say, there's also the show in Long Island in August.
Okay.
So my point to that is that National or not, like my opinion, National, I love the community that the National has. Like, just listen to stories, listen to Eric at those back pages, listen to Filmington. You can't, like, I'll put it this way: if you go to the National and you don't come back with friends, then there might be a you problem. That's all I have to say, right? Yep. But I do think after the National, there's going to be a lot of regional shows that are going to gain so much popularity. Like, I'm actually tomorrow going to go over to Chantilly to the CSA show in the afternoon, hoping to meet somebody over there. I'm looking forward to maybe making it to New York. Also, Tampa has a big show coming in the Tampa area, I think in September. Vegas has the one in industry. It's like every month there's a big show.
Yeah, there's the Philly show. I want to say is the next one in September. I'll be there, and I don't know if you're on Instagram or not, but let's hook up. We'll definitely do that. And there's next year, I think the Nationals in Atlantic City, so that's less than an hour from me. So
it is, but I can't stand that venue. We talked about this yesterday because everybody has to drive to Atlantic City. Like, you fly into Philly, right?
You could fly into Atlantic City. Actually, it's a small airport, but probably what a lot of people will do will fly into Philly and then they'll just take a drive. It's an hour away.
Is it just an hour?
It's about, well, for me it is, but I mean, anywhere from an hour, hour and a half. It's not far. It's 60 miles.
Are there other alternatives? Like, is there a bus, taxi, train, public transportation? No.
I think you could take a bus, but that's probably not going to be the best way to go.
Way to go. Yeah.
The thing with Atlantic City is all the casinos are there. So if it's at the convention center, Caesars and all the casinos are right there. So there's plenty of room.
Yes,
but it's not like it was when I was a kid. It was it's changed. It's the Atlantic City used to be the spot.
It used to be. Well, again, legalization of gambling on the East Coast has changed so much stuff. Yes, Snoop, I am over in the D.C. area in Northern Virginia. Closest card store for me is Collectible Kings in Winchester. And then I also go out to Dulles every now and then to Chantilly to Blowout's fantastic store. AC is fun and super. AC also has a lot of distractions there. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. With the gambling and the nightlife, I remember that being a little more fun. I think Chicago, you're pretty much isolated there at the event. I wish they would do. I'm looking forward to Vegas. I don't know if I'll make it, but I think Vegas would be fun.
Vegas would be awesome because it's unlimited space, but it's a hike for a lot of people. So.
It is. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. I know the National doesn't have contracts with West Coast vendors, but I really wish, and maybe that's a thing. Maybe someone will create a competing sports card show on the West Coast, a West Coast equivalent. Vegas is going to start. I think.
Well, Dallas is getting pretty big, so
they are, and the record was set in L.A. for everybody. It was in Anaheim in 1991. So we will see. I'm super excited. So those people are going. Have a great time. Please do share some comments and thoughts. I love to see some late night breaking and drinking conversations, right? That's what I really miss. I want to hear some guys sitting around drinking bourbon and telling me about the best thing they saw at the show that day. You know what I'm saying? I also recommend there's a lot of great parties and events going on. So reach out to your distributors or your breakers like that. There's people who are hosting events, like you mentioned, Filmington's having something. I think those back pages, and I know Mike is actually doing something where they're organizing YouTube guys to get together. So a lot of great things going on. I just want to say, I do wish I was going. I just have some family conflicts. And again, I understand Andy's comments and I understand his rationale. And I'm really excited to have you on tonight, Andy, and share this hour with me.
No, I appreciate it. And I will say this, the last time I'm going to bring up the National is the best thing that happened was that video, because I got to meet so many of these guys through that video and got to learn so much about the baseball collecting world. And I was at Elite Hunters. I heard you talking to Pepino, man. I got to run. My son Tyler was born in Colombia, and I think Elite Hunters was born in Colombia too. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Very cool. Your son was born in Colombia, the country?
Yes, he was.
So, man, I tell you, one day I'd love to get some stories from you. I'm sure there's some things you can't talk about, but let me ask you this before we go totally off topic. Are you a fan of any of the Netflix shows? Were any of them good? You know,
the Narcos
shows. What was the one? What was it called?
Narcos was done while I was down there. Those guys, Steve and Javier, they're friends of mine. So yeah,
what'd you think of that series?
It was awesome. I mean, it was entertaining. I mean, a lot of this stuff was little taken for entertainment purposes only. It was well done for sure.
How about the one with Tom Cruise flying the drugs for the CIA back and forth in the?
That 80s? Was a true story. I knew about that. That was a true story. Sad, but it was a true story.
Interesting. Oh man, I can't wait, Andy, someday to sit down. That's why.
Don't forget the giveaway, Zig.
Oh yes. Okay, so I don't even know how to do the giveaway now. How can I do a giveaway?
I don't know.
I'm going to take names from the chat and we'll do something random. I totally forgot about that. I don't want to just randomly pick somebody. I don't have a question for you, but I will give something away. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm terrible at that. What a fumble, Ziggy. Fumble. Anyway, guys, I want you to not miss out. A few things I want to wrap up with. First of all, I want you to walk away understanding that the hobby is a great place. And I think the key, if anything, right now is self-regulation. So be active, be involved, have a voice. And self-regulation is a two-way street, right? So I'll even say sometimes if I step out of line, call me out. Hey, Ziggy, why'd you say that? What are you going with? I think even like with what I loved about Andy's video was you created controversy, but you did a great job of how you addressed it and kind of went to each person. Yeah, here's how I feel. And the one thing I will say, if I can close on this, is that we all share cards in common, right? Communication is the next most important thing we need to do, right? When you're walking up to the target and you see another guy get out of his car and he's hustling up to the target too, and you both are running for the boxes, stop and, introduce yourself and say, hey man, you here for the Prism or are you here for the Bowman? Because you know what he's there for. And I think if we communicate more, we're going to have less conflicts. We're going to have more better stories. And we're going to have more self-policing in the hobby, right? Because I think that's what's key. I think that's what will make the hobby great as we move forward. And I'm super, super excited about where the hobby is. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and thank you, Zig, for inviting me. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it. These guys are all terrific, and I had a great time.
I'm trying to think of a way. I'm going to have to post something for a contest. Maybe I'll post something on the page. I forgot totally about the damn box of Upper Deck, which I'm super excited to be able to give away. And I think it's awesome. So please register. We will figure out a way to give that away to you. I will say, like I said, next up, I just dropped the link. It's Bowman 53. Great vintage collector. Really cool. I actually just stumbled across his page recently. I do recommend checking him out. Some great content tonight. Tomorrow night, I'm going to move my open mic night to, I think, 10 or 11 after the Hobby Palooza. I'll be talking Hobby Palooza stuff. I encourage anybody to stop by open mic night, drop in. Love to have you on camera or dial in or, just voice or whatever it is. So really, again, appreciate it. I think we're up on the hour here. Yeah, we're at 7:59. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you guys very, very much. Really, really appreciate it. Andy, thank you as well.
No, thank you. It was my pleasure.
Have a great night, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the hobby.